The state has seen millions of dollars from President Joe Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law. So how exactly is it being used? Here to talk about it is Zachary Kolodin, director of the Michigan Infrastructure Office. Thank you for being here today.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
So it's been about 3 years, just shy of that, since the infrastructure bill was signed into law. How much of an impact would you say it's had on Michigan since then?
You know, it's had a massive impact. Michigan has pulled down more than $13 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure law to date. And that's money that is helping us upgrade archaic water systems, help make sure that families have clean water coming out of the tap. It's revitalizing roads and bridges all across the state. And it's helping us seed clean energy investments in communities. So we're not only helping close the deferred maintenance gap, we're building the infrastructure for the future.
Yeah, so experts like yourself are very familiar with it, those working on the projects, but your average Michigander might not notice that these things are happening around them. Mm-hmm. Is there a favorite project or something that you can point to that people will notice and people will see an impact in their lives?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the city of Detroit specifically has been able to pull down 3 separate clean, safe streets and roads grants. So these are grants that help reduce fatalities, reduce injuries, make sure that traffic continues to flow so that we don't get delays. And people will notice the changes across the city. Just last week, we saw a $10 million grant for the Gratiot Corridor. Mm-hmm. The Gratiot Corridor is one of the most dangerous corridors, not only in the city, but really in the entire state, with 19 fatalities over the last 5 years and dozens more injuries. That kind of hazard is unacceptable, and the city and the Michigan Department of Transportation recognize that, and so we put together a partnership to install safety improvements up and down the corridor to calm traffic and really make it a more complete street where folks can access, the amazing businesses in Eastern Market up and down the corridor.
So important. There's also the Inflation Reduction Act, mm-hmm. A little newer, slightly younger than the other bill. What have we seen from that?
Yeah, so Michigan is kicking butt on the Inflation Reduction Act. Apologies to your viewers.
That one's allowed.
And so, we have led the country in Inflation Reduction Act funded projects announced with over $26 billion in federal investment headed to Michigan. That's catalyzed the creation of 21,000 jobs. And these are not just jobs in cities like Detroit or Grand Rapids. These are jobs spread all across this beautiful state, right? Jobs, high-paying manufacturing jobs available in, even in rural communities that have struggled to grow in recent years. So, these clean energy investments are making our economy more democratic, in addition to lowering our energy costs and bringing in federal dollars.
How are these projects decided on, and is there any input? If communities want to see some mm-hmm. things happen, is there a chance that they could kind of influence that process?
Well, in every case, a project has to have the cooperation of the local community, and they often come along with generous community benefits packages, including workforce training to make sure that folks in the community can actually get these jobs and bring home those high salaries for their families. In terms of where the projects go and why Michigan, that's something that's ultimately decided by the market. We've seen across the country a tripling of manufacturing investment since the Inflation Reduction Act was signed. Really incredible manufacturing boom that reverses really decades of disinvestment in that sector, with over 133 billion projects announced nationwide. And many of those projects, 89 billion worth of those projects, have broken ground to date. So we are seeing these projects begin to move forward, and in coming years, we'll see people actually start to produce solar panels, electric vehicle batteries, hydrogen products on these sites, and bring that supply chain that had previously sort of been leaking overseas back home to Michigan.
So all of this underway just a few years into it. How long into the future do you think we will be seeing impacts from these two bills, laws?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And we actually just saw an incredible report on this come out from Five Lakes Energy, which is a nonpartisan research group located here in Michigan. And they're anticipating that by 2030, the Inflation Reduction Act will help Michigan secure $15.6 billion in federal dollars, will lower household energy costs on average by $297 a household, and will save $7.3 billion in public health costs. So that's just in the first, 6-7 years of the bill. Those savings and those benefits continue out to 2030, 2040, because these investments are catalytic. If we have a clean energy sector that's thriving, we can build those projects at lower cost. And because the supply chain is right here in Michigan, we are not vulnerable to disruptions from hostile foreign adversaries. And in fact, the resources that we create here create wealth for people at home.
It's so great to see the investment and jobs being created at the same time. Zachary Kolodin from the Michigan Infrastructure Office, thanks so much for joining us today.